Salutations, my friends, and thank you for tuning in to another edition of Factions of Freedom. I'm your host, Noisera, Freedom Faction, whichever one you prefer, and I entitled this episode, Assaulting Cognition, Policies of the Technocracy, and Overseas Observations, because we're going to be looking at all kinds of wild things. If you haven't noticed, things are getting kind of strange out there. This is going to be one of our more political-based episodes. We're going to be talking about the abuse of Xanax, opioids, chemically induced children, as well as Google teaming up with MasterCard, government control of Silicon Valley, and even China using LinkedIn to recruit spies. They recently offered Africa $60 billion with no strings attached, but we'll see how that all works out. We're going to be getting into this and more in this edition, but first, a few quick updates for you guys. As always, I hope you guys are checking out the links in the description bar below. I'm trying to make sure I put a healthy amount of information into the show notes so that you guys can really kind of follow along with what we're doing here. Sometimes I miss things, I get caught up ranting, and I don't really touch on certain subjects that I have here. But I hope you guys are looking at the show notes. You can download them at the very bottom of this episode on our website. Also, think about becoming a Patreon exclusive member. $4.99 a month. It really helps us get there. You might have noticed that we recently got our new equipment for the studio, and we're doing more video broadcasts to hang out with you guys. But really, think about becoming a Patreon exclusive member. Your guys' support actually helps us do more than you think. Think about getting some of the New Leaf CBD oil that helps me go to sleep. I talk about it in this episode. And we have all kinds of other products that we're going to start trying to bring to you guys to really be mutually beneficial for you, for us, and for everybody involved. Also, last thing, and then we're going to jump into the show. Make sure you're going to the website. We have the Vault. That's free additional information outside of the podcast. You can download PDFs, you can download videos, you can download memes, you can download all kinds of other information. And we do all the work that we do for you, good people. And with that being said, let's start the show. Salutations, my friends, and thank you for tuning in to another edition of Factions of Freedom. You know, I'ma just come right out and say it. I think the reason why I like talking about drugs all the time on the show is because I'm always tripping, but like in a good way. And the reason I say that is because I'm always paying attention to so many different things around us, so many different things that like define us, and just the cosmic synchronicity and everything. Like that sacred geometry stuff they're talking about, it's not a joke. You know, you can see it. The math in the sky, the math in the wind, the math in the water. You know, and maybe it's because I spend a lot of time outside. You know, I got the animals. You know, I'm very, I don't know, I guess I'm spiritual. But I don't know. I think the reason why, to bring it down to point, why we like to talk about the things we talk about in the capacity that we do talk about them is because you can experience these things naturally. You should. You should believe in yourself, love yourself, and understand yourself with everything that's going on. And with that being said, I want to say thank you for real for tuning in to this edition of Factions of Freedom. Got a lot of crazy stuff going on, right? You know, we have Colin Kaepernick. Apparently he's deciding to trigger all kinds of people to where they're literally burning their clothes, burning their shoes. One man actually went to the hospital. He filmed himself burning his shoes while he had his shoes on, and he's like, oh my god, I'm in the hospital now. It's like, well, yeah, you're gonna be in the hospital, bud. You went and decided to burn your shoes, you burn your feet. What did you think was gonna happen, man? But you know, this kind of brings me to point, kind of, you know, why we're gonna start jumping into the episode from here on out. What is happening with people? It's like a wave of just special, a wave of just mentality that's just going around. It's crazy. You know, it really is like a frequency. And I really remember I don't have a date for it, but I remember talking to Zach of UC Fitness about this, man, how, you know, these days we're going to start seeing people doing dumb stuff because they're tied into different frequencies and different waves, different energies and different essences, you see. And this is it. I understand having your faith put in things. I understand believing in things bigger than you. I believe in something, even if it means sacrificing everything. Good. Welcome to the truth community. You have to sacrifice everything. Unlearn everything you've learned because it's been taught a lie. But this is the thing that we've been talking about all throughout Trump's presidency, the idea of nationalistic symbols, what we're attaching ourselves to, the redefinition of America, the redefinition of patriotism. You're not America if you don't like In-N-Out Burger. You're not America if you don't like Nikes. There's all kinds of stuff going on. But what is going on? Well, we talked about this kind of in the previous episode. I called it the stupid air pollution. There's a new study that's come out that claims air pollution is making us less intelligent. And now this isn't to kind of say that people who are burning their Nikes are inhaling these stupid fumes. What I'm trying to say is this is something that's affecting us all. I wanted to kind of illustrate this to talk about how they're assaulting cognition. They're having us do all these different various things. We laugh about all the challenges and the social media, social justice, virtue signaling things that happen with social media. We're seeing a reversing of that happening with the Republican Party, with the Conservative Party, with all these people. And I find it hilarious, to be honest. I really do, because you have to understand the very significant and sophisticated mind control that's happening here. Really, if you guys want an even better example of this type of mind control and of this brainwashing, this indoctrination that's taking place, be sure to go back and listen to that episode with me and Kerry Wedler of the Anti-Media. So, with that being said, let's get into the episode. Let's start talking about this stuff, the concept of them assaulting cognition. They want to make us retarded, unfortunately. I'm sorry if that offends people, but they want to make us special. They want to make us stupid. This is part of the dehumanization, depopulation campaign. They have to demoralize us. You see, as I talked about coming into the show with drugs and things such as this, they're pushing it out there. This is why they want to have everybody addicted to something. But if you're addicted to drugs, you're not paying attention to what's coming on or what's in the water, what's being sprayed on you. You see, we're talking about all the different facets of how they're trying to just do this, assault your cognition. So with that being said, let's jump into this. According to a new study, high amounts of pollution in the air is dumbing down the world's population. The new research indicates that the damage to a society of toxic air is far deeper than the well-known impacts of physical health, and it appears to be a precursor to ban certain vehicles. This particular study was research was conducted in China because their air quality is horrendous. It's about 3 times above the World Health Organization guidelines, according to a report on this study done by The Guardian. But the findings are relevant across the world because about 95% of the global population about 95% of the population, the global population, are breathing what scientists have said is, quote, unsafe air. This study went in depth and found that high pollution levels led to significant drops in test scores in language and arithmetic, with the average impact equivalent to having lost a year of the person's education, and the effect is much worse than some of the most vulnerable people in society, the elderly. Now I'm going to put a pause right there, because what I'm trying to talk about, and this is kind of what I talked about in the previous episode in Unraveling Society, you're losing a year of education. Okay, just due to what you're breathing in. This is why we're going to start talking about air filters, water filters, and everything else. And again, this is stuff that people are already knowing, but it's what happens when this stuff, again, bioaccumulates. Look at the other factors that are involved in this. You see, it's not about just having bad air. It's not about just having polluted water. You have to really take a step back and look at what is going on. You see, there's an article that popped up from, I think, Waking Times. Yeah, Waking Times by John Rappaport. He's a guest writer. He asks, how many people are on psychiatric drugs? So put aside the thought that the air that you're breathing, or at least the people in China, the air that they're breathing, takes about a year off of their education. How much do you think these pharmaceuticals, antidepressants, neurotoxics, or these antidepressants and all these pills, how much do you think they take off from your cognitive function, from your ability to think, for your ability to reason? If you guys, and that's I kind of, if you guys saw my DMs of people who were saying, hey, I'm on this pill. I saw your post about pharmaceuticals. How do I get off? Hey, I'm on this pill. I'm on this pill. I'm on this pill. If you guys saw some of the responses that I get for posting stuff like this, it would trip you out. And I'm sure we all know somebody that has been affected by Big Pharma. This is a much bigger epidemic than a lot of people think. And this is why, again, I talked about coming into the show. Drugs. What is it? Why are they trying to forcibly addict us to these types of things? What is going on? The next article that I have for you guys is where we talk about the teen abuse of Xanax. I know. Lil Peep. Rapper. Kid overdose. How many people, hold on now, before I get into this article, how many people do you think overdose on just pills, on just lean? Now, I hate to sound like a grown-up here, or like a Buzz Killington, but we got to understand, the stuff that they're telling us is fun is killing us. And then people come out of these drug-induced rages or these drug-induced hazes wondering, oh my God, what's going on? What's happening? I can't think for myself. So what do? They go right back to the drugs. They go right back to it. It creates a dependency. We're not even talking about the brain chemistry of it. There's so much behind this that it really blows my mind. So to combine that with, air pollution making us less intelligent and, people being literally addicted to drugs that are over the counter and actually prescribed for them, what is going on? They don't want you to think for yourself. Let's get into this article. It says antidepressants are neurotoxic. That is, they harm the brain and disrupt its functions. As a result, they cause innumerable kinds of abnormal thinking and behaviors, including mania, suicide, and violence. In the process, they cause detectable damage to the brain of the child or adult and also to the fetus of pregnant mothers who were taking the drug. Peter Breggin, MD and psychiatrist, author of Toxic Psychiatry at St. Martin's Press. Quote, I keep telling people all over the world that there are no reliable tests for diagnosing any so-called mental disorder. I explain this in great detail. Of course, for many people, this is too much detail or too much to handle. They run away. What is my strategy for dealing with this? I keep finding new ways to tell them the truth. I don't stop. That's what an actual reporter does. I came across a Forbes article back in 2015 by Judy Stone, Why the U of Minnesota research scandal threatens all of us. In the piece, Stone mentions some boggling reports about Americans diagnosed with so-called mental disorders taking psychiatric drugs. Quote, the use of drugs for mental health conditions in the U.S. is staggering. According to a 2011 mental health report by Medco Health Solutions, it says that more than 1 in 5 adults was on at least one psychiatric med in 2010, up 22% from 2000. More than 25% of adult women were on mental health meds in 2010 versus 15% of men. 21% of women were on antidepressants, and 11% of women aged 45 to 65 were on anti-anxiety meds. 4% of adults were on medication for attention deficit or attention hyperdeficit disorder or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. There is an estimated 5.4 million children carrying a diagnosis of ADHD. The figures for use of these antidepressants in children are even more appalling, being 2 to 3%. This is especially scary since kids drug themselves, can increase the risk of suicide. These numbers are showing that there is a plague afoot in America, a plague of diagnosing and prescribing drugs. Yeah, well, the same way with vaccines, the doctors actually get paid more money for the extra shots that they give. Yeah, this is an epidemic. And then, Trump turns around and says, oh, well, we have an opioid epidemic. I don't understand why, all these people are on drugs. I don't understand what's going on. I'll tell you what's going on. We have a society and a culture that actually encourages this madness, and then when you tell them, hey, if you can believe it, you could actually get high if you just spent time with yourself. Try sitting in a room for 10 minutes. Try meditating. Go outside. Don't do all these other things, man. You got to understand. And I say this coming from a place of experience, clearly, and from a place of understanding. What they are trying to do and what they are trying to pass you off as drugs are not drugs. You can look at any one of these pharmaceutical commercials, and they will tell you to your face, look, if you take this, you're going to get this, you're going to get that, you're going to get this, you're going to get all kinds of problems for one thing that you could actually fix if you took the time to have the mental fortitude, if you took the time to discipline yourself, if you took the time to explore yourself. A lot of what they're pushing these days is to promote disassociation. In the future, trust me, you're going to start seeing this, a lot of disassociation or dissociative identity disorder. A lot of multiple personalities going on in the future. A whole lot of craziness going on in the future that they're setting up right now. We talk about this all the time, the concept of legalizing lunacy. Good Lord. You know, let me get back into this article right here. It says teen abuse of Xanax is skyrocketing across America as big pharma's profits soar. We put this up September 3rd. It's from worldtruth.tv by Eddie Levine. It says experts say that the prescription drug abuse in adolescents has been dropping in recent years, but the number of young people who are addicted to Xanax and other benzodiazepines have actually been climbing alarmingly high in the recent years. The director of adolescent addiction treatment at Boston's Children's Hospital, Sharon Levy, said that the use of benzodiazepine among adolescents has skyrocketed. More kids are being admitted to hospitals for withdrawals from the drugs, which often cause seizures. Levy said that those working in addiction treatment centers tend to see these trends before they're reflected in national data, so it's not something we can expect to hear a lot about until we're in the future. Making matters worse is the fact that many of the young people who take these drugs are taking very high doses of them on a daily basis. Some are even mixing them with opioids and alcohol, a combination that can be fatal. Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine addiction psychiatrist Mark Fishman concurs. He said that the benzos are surpassing opioids as the preferred prescription drug of abuse in the young patients, and many of them are extreme users who take high doses. According to Levy, many young people are initially drawn to these drugs because they believe they are harmless. She said that many adolescents tell her that they think they're safe because their parents take them. Oh my God. Oh my good Lord. And in many cases, that's where they're first getting them from. In addition, they say they are not seeking them to get high. Instead, they just want to feel normal. Levy said some patients even ask me to just prescribe Xanax for them so they don't have to buy it illegally. They think that it's good for them. That's one idea, that something is safe or beneficial or medical has launched many an epidemic in the past. So my colleagues and I are watching this with trepidation. I'm watching it, and this is what I'm talking about. They're getting it from the parents. They're just getting it free. They're just getting all these drugs, and they're wondering, I don't know what's going on. I don't know why autism rates are skyrocketing. I don't know why little Jimmy can't focus in school. I don't understand what's going on. You see, now, the article that I'm going to read next for you guys is called Chemically Induced Frankenstein. It's by Robert Hunsker of Counterpunch. I want you guys to go check it out yourself in full. I'm going to briefly go over it, but the reason I want to preface it is because we're talking about just that. We're having chemically altered children. We're having genetically modified babies. We're having socially manipulated teenagers. You think about that, okay? Where we're going, that's what I'm saying. People are trying to take drugs to feel normal. People are trying to literally escape reality to feel what they think of as reality. That's what I mean by this dissociation identity disorder. People don't know who they are. We see the meme all the time. So many selfies and so little self-knowledge. It's because we're not understanding why we need to promote the individual. We lose the essence if we start promoting this collectivism. It's scary. It is very scary. And when you have people who think it is normal to be on all of these different drugs, that's not normal. What's normal is your brain producing these chemicals and these and activating certain neural pathways. A lot of it too comes down to health and exercise, diet, nutrition. I hate to sound like a fitness coach or something like that, man. But I'm noticing myself too, the amount of passion that I'm able to bring to you guys from working out, the amount of work that I'm able to get done from working out, the amount of phone calls, emails, and responses I'm able to do from generally just improving my lifestyle, not humping my phone the whole time, hounding for news, scouring different places. You see, a lot of it is pattern, society, culture. It's a lot of different things. But the ultimate point I'm trying to get at with this segment is looking at how they're trying to give us all of the different tools for us to destroy ourselves, only for them to come through with a fake solution. Just remember that. These people offer the solution after causing the problem. Let's get into this article by Robert Hunsker of Counterpunch. We put this up September 4th. It says chemically induced Frankenstein humans. Now, again, and I'll get into this because this follows along the lines of us talking about genetic modification. You know, the genetic tampering of what we've been talking about with clones, genetically modified embryos, the genetically modified children documentary where they're talking about the damage that glyphosate has done. You see, the University of Oxford warning of black market human cloning. Even today, you know, there are articles that are coming out about it. What we have to look at now is just that. We're looking at how they're trying to assault normal human cognition to come through and offer these types of solutions. Oh, well, we don't know why your DNA is damaged. Maybe if you see one of our fertility specialists, they can use their CRISPR-Cas9 system or some kind of genetically modified or genetic modifying tool to make you reproduce effectively. Let's get into this article right here. It says, one of the biggest open questions of the century is whether 144,000 different chemicals swirling throughout the world are properly tested and analyzed for toxicity. By almost all accounts, the scale of toxic risk is unknown. This may be the biggest tragedy of all time, a black eye of enormous proportions. Correspondingly, and very likely not yet 100% proven, but probably 99% as a result of ubiquitous chemical presence, 150 million, that's right, 150 million, that's right, I'm talking 7 zeros after that 15, 150 million Americans have chronic diseases, including high cholesterol, high blood pressure, arthritis, heart disease, diabetes, fibromyalgia, cancer, stroke, asthma, cystic fibrosis, obesity, and osteoporosis. You can look this up at the Rand Corporation Review of 2017, and you have to ask yourself the question, why? According to Dr. Paul Winchester, who discovered the link between chemicals like the pesticide atrazine and glyphosate, aka Roundup, and epigenetic human alteration, the findings are, quote, the most important next discovery in all of medicine. And this was said by EcoWatch, August 16th of 2018. Dr. Winchester was one of the researchers / authors of atrazine-induced epigenetic transgenerational inheritance of disease, lean phenotype and sperm epimutation pathology biomarkers. That is a mouthful. It was published in PLOS September 20th, 2017. The grisly underlying message of that study is as clear as a bell. Chemicals found far and wide throughout America alter human hormones as well as human DNA, which passes along generation to generation, known as transgenerational inheritance. Now, I'm going to stop right there because what we're talking about is just this epigenetic assault, not only against you. They have the first wave, the first generation effect against you, but they will do devastating work to our children. That's why we have to look at this stuff. It's much more important than you. It's much more important than me. It's much more important than a lot of people can comprehend, but that's why we have to look at it now. Some people say, oh, well, Alex Jones is notoriously known for, the water's turning the freaking frogs gay. Well, now we actually have studies that are coming out confirming that indeed atrazine is causing transgenerational mutations, transgenerational inheritances. What is going on is not only for us, but it's for our kids. But what's going to happen is we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about, as we see them trying to manipulate man, assaulting cognition, changing us day by day, we're going to see what the policies are of this technocracy. You see, you have to understand there are no humans in the technocracy, only transhumans. But we're going to be talking about this and more on the other side. Ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Sometimes I just want to... Oh! Well then. I didn't see you there. But I'm glad I did, because you definitely didn't want to hear where I was about to go with that. But thank you for tuning in to this edition of Factions of Freedom. I'm your host, Noisera, Freedom Faction, whichever one you prefer. And you guys can actually try to contact me. It would be better if listeners tried to contact me through email instead of through social media. Social media is very quick. It's not meaningful. I don't really think it's meaningful. We can have actually drawn out lengthy discussions through email versus over quick social media. But I guess I just wanted to say that because we have to look at how communication is what these days. What are we talking about? What's going on? How are people engaging one another? You see, I have some good news for you guys. You know, we're talking about things that are going on with our kids, things that are happening transgenerationally, right? What's happening to us? Well, some people have actually been able to notice that what's going on with cell phones, what's going on with technology, and how it's basically affecting us. It's kind of having an adverse effect. We're moving more towards this herd-like mentality. So we hear that now France has become the first Western country to ban cell phones from schools. I think this is pretty good news. With kids going back to school, things going on, education, if you can call it that, trying to get serious, it's a good thing. Take the phones out of school. We also hear that a lot more millennials are deleting Facebook. Teenagers are not even using social media. So we hear a lot of different good things are happening all around. I think that's actually very good if you ask me. Basically what we're seeing right now is people who are kind of in the fight, people who are in the know, they're using social media, and there's people outside of that monitoring it, but people who are kind of disillusioned or turned off to everything else that's going on, they're turning away. So this is good news if you ask for me. But there's a lot of different angles to look at this from. But let's get into this. We put this up September 4th. It's from Your Newswire. It's by Sean Al-Talabi. It says France has become the first Western country to issue a total ban on cell phones in schools in a bid to smash bullying and the sexualization of kids. The new law will see all primary schools in the country banned from using cell phones, smartphones, tablets, and smartwatches starting today. Although the ban will affect all elementary schools, high schools who teach children between ages of 15 to 18 will introduce a ban on electronic devices after they reopen after the summer break. DailyMail.co.uk reports proponents say that the law, which has caused widespread controversy, will reduce distraction in the classroom, combat bullying, and encourage children to be more physically active during break time. Marie Caroline Madeline, 41, said after dropping her daughter off for the first day of middle school in Paris, quote, "I think it's a good thing. It's a good signal that says schools is for studying. It's not about being on your phone. It's hard with adolescents. You can't control what they see, and that's one of the things that worries me as a parent. Nearly 90% of the French 12 to 17-year-olds have a mobile phone, and supporters hope the ban will limit the spread of violent and pornographic content among children." Education Minister Jean-Michel Blanquer, Education Minister Jean-Michel Blanquer, you just have to say it like that, has hailed the legislation as a law for the 21st century that would improve discipline among France's 12 million pupils. He said in June, as the bill was going through Parliament, being open to technologies of the future doesn't mean we have to accept all of their uses. I think that's actually a pretty profound thing to kind of say too. But critics dismissed the measure as a public relations exercise and predicted it will be difficult to enforce. The government has left schools to decide how to implement the new rules, recommending that they store students' phones in lockers during the day, but some schools do not have that. Research shows that in French schools that have already banned phones, many pupils admit to breaking the rules. Macron, a 40-year-old political centrist, pledged widespread reforms when he was elected in May last year, and education has been no exception. So I think that's a good thing. You know, they're trying to keep kids away from the internet for their own reasons. You know, we have a lot of information coming out. There's a lot of different ways that people can learn things. I have a lot of people, you know, even within that age bracket, that do follow us, that follow the content, that listen to what I'm saying right now, that have grown up while we've perfected everything we've done. So it's good and bad. It's a double-edged sword. You're keeping kids away from, the hive-like mindset that technology is creating. They said the sexualization of children, distractions and things like that, encouraging people to be more physically active. These things are good, but at the same time, this is information that they're kind of being blocked from. But if it's important to them, this is why they'll go do it after school. They'll take what they've learned, what they've been taught, and then they'll go learn. So I don't know. That's my approach, but I also think it's a good thing. So while we're here still talking about, the idea of going back to school, what's going on with kids, I think, while, again, it's good that we're trying to let kids grow up on their own, I think it's bad that what you see going on in education is more policy or more politics than it is the actual education. And what I mean by that is they're actually allowing kids to have like bulletproof backpacks. And what I mean by that is they're trying to make kids feel scared. They're trying to get across this agenda that, hey, look, there's somebody amongst you that's crazy and he's going to come in here and kill you. And this is not a way for kids to learn. This is not an environment conducive to learning. But with that being said, let me play this clip for you guys.
Back to school backpacks taking on all new meaning this morning. MC Armor is the company behind high-end bulletproof backpacks and clothing that are revamping the protective equipment market. It is anticipated to reach more than $5 billion in the next 7 years. That would be the revenue in this business. Here to tell us more about it is Carolina Ballesteros Casas, MC Armor Marketing Manager. Carolina, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning.
And you brought a lot of things. You designed these bulletproof backpacks specifically for the United States.
Yes, exactly. We have different categories of lines of product. We have the gold collection, black collection is fashion with ballistics, and we have the backpacks for kids.
Why did you decide to bring these to the U.S.?
Okay, in the U.S., sadly, there's the gun fact. Everybody can have a gun. So here, kids need to be protected, and we have the fact that there's some school issues. So we need to bring this to the United States.
Tell us how it works. So this is not. It doesn't even feel like it's heavier than a regular backpack.
We have here the backpack plate.
So this is what's in there.
Exactly.
This is what stops the bullet.
That's the ballistic plate.
Got it. Okay.
It has to be hard, not soft, because kids, we work with pediatricians. We have a company with research and development,
right?
And the pediatrician says kids before 15 years, they don't have fat, they don't have enough muscles, so they need to have hard ballistics, and also to be wear as a shield.
Oh my goodness. It's incredible that this has come to this, though, that we need bulletproof clothing. Some of these things are quite fashion forward. I mean, tell us about, for example, something like this, which I feel it in here.
Yeah, exactly.
It's heavier, but this looks like a very fashionable jacket.
That's the idea.
Yeah, tell us about
this. This is the black collection.
Okay.
We were with Miguel Caballero's brand. We were 13 presidents in Latin America. We have prime ministers wearing this. So it's very lightweight. You can see it's wearable, it's fashionable, but wearable and protection.
You said you have presidents wearing this. What about business people? You also do this in suits, right?
Yes, exactly.
Here is this one.
You get the gist of it. I'm going to go ahead and stop that, because basically what they're talking about, they're trying to they're trying to normalize the fact that, look, you're going to be heading towards a civil war. You're going to be heading towards some time of destabilization. You got to start getting ready. You better start training. And this is the mindset we're sending kids to school with. You got to think about that. Fashion with ballistics, fashion forward. You got a jacket, a bulletproof jacket, a bulletproof backpack. This is the mindset. You see, in the technocracy, as I was saying before, there are no humans. So whenever they start unleashing these types of things, right, you have to ask yourself, well, where am I going to be? Are you going to be prepared? I really don't even know what to say about the fact that they are literally trying to send your kids to school with bulletproof backpacks, bulletproof shirts. So then, but at the same time, this is what's going on across the world thanks to America and the endless wars that we're involved in. We're bombing kids all the time. They're trying to make it seem fashionable Like, really think about how crazy that sounds. But then at the same time, we're so desensitized we can't even tell. And if we can tell, we don't really care. So how is this a policy of the technocracy? Well, you have to seem like you're protecting the slaves whenever it's an all-out war. When you're trying to control everything, you have to make them seem like they can at least defend themselves. You see, I've talked about this before. You know, the concept of this neo-feudalistic world they're trying to have us in. To kind of play off of, you know, the shootings, the destabilization, the domestic terrorist aspects of it. I've talked about this before, the civilization, the Civil War, and the destabilization. This is what they mean by the Second American Revolution. I've talked about it with the elites moving into bunkers, creating these deep underground military-based communities. We have an article out this week that talks about how technocrats are moving towards New Zealand. You've got the military that has spent $576 million on underground warfare. Don't believe me? Go look it up. Go look up Operation Gotham Shield. We've reported on it. Go look up Thunderstorm Spiral. Go look it up. We've talked about it. Here's how it works. While they're putting these cool little cool little backpacks on your kid. Yeah, it's so trendy. It's so cool. Here's how it's going to work. There's going to be a civil war. And I didn't mean to talk about this, but let me get into this right now. It's going to be a civil war. This is what I'm worried about with Trump saying he's going to crash the economy, or if the economy crashes under Trump, everybody's going to be poor. It's going to be a civil war, destabilization, police state, or martial law, whichever one you want. It's exactly what they want. Then once they're controlled, they're going to go for this socioeconomic reformation, the fourth industrial revolution, as I've talked about it. What's going to happen is they'll release this bioweapon, and then they'll push for even more control. You see, there's levels to this. There's really levels to this. I don't want to go into it, but what I'm trying to really explain to you guys is these technocrats, they want unilateral control, and they see that they have to seize it through fear. And the best way to do that is to market to the kids. Give them bulletproof backpacks so they can get done playing Xbox, throw on their bulletproof backpack, maybe dodge a bullet when they go to school. This is crazy if you ask me. But this is the world that we live in 2018. Let's go ahead and get into this article. Get back into the show. Google is teaming up with MasterCard they cut a secret deal to track users on or offline sales. So, great. When you're not online, that's right, because we're figuring out that Google, Amazon, PayPal, all these other places that they track you. Great. Fantastic. I have an article coming up for you guys afterwards where we're talking about the government control of Silicon Valley and how technocrats are trying to engineer the vote. They're not engineering the vote. Election meddling, election fraud. This is stuff that's been going on forever. But this is the game they play. This is, again, part of this political theater. Why would Google want to be able to team up with MasterCard to track your sales? It's because they can show you more of what you want to see. You see, so they can start giving you discounts. So they can start seeing your data, get your metadata. That's really what this is. These technocrats, they need as much information on you as possible. That's why you have them microchipping thousands of Swedes. AI that can predict 95% accuracy what somebody's death is. Amazon literally getting involved in cancer research. Let me get into this article. We put this up September 3rd. It's from the Drudge Report feed. It says, for the past year, select Google advertisers have had access to a potent new tool to track whether the ads they ran online led to a sale at a physical store in the U.S. That insight came thanks to, in part, to a stockpile of MasterCard transactions that Google paid for. But most of the 2 billion MasterCard holders aren't aware of this behind-the-scenes tracking. That's because the company has never told the public about the arrangement. Alphabet Inc., Google and MasterCard brokered a business partnership during about 4 years of negotiations, according to 4 people with knowledge of the deal, 3 of whom worked on it directly. The alliance gave Google an unprecedented asset for measuring retail spending part of the search giant strategy to fortify its primary business against onslaughts from Amazon.com, Inc., and others. But the deal, which has not been previously reported on, could raise broader privacy concerns about how much consumer data technology companies like Google quietly absorb. Quote, people don't expect what they buy physically in a store to be linked to what they're buying online, said Christine Bannon, counsel with the advocacy group Electronic Privacy Information Center, EPIC. Basically, there's just far too much burden that companies place on consumers and not enough responsibility being taken by the companies to inform users what they're doing and what rights they have. Google paid MasterCard millions of dollars for the data, according to two people who worked on the deal, and the companies discussed sharing a portion of the ad revenue, according to one of the people. The people asked not to be identified discussing private matters. A spokeswoman for Google said there is no revenue sharing agreement with its partners. Of course, deny, and then, when you can't deny even more. Of course they're going to deny it. That's how this works. They have to not tell you that this happens. But what happens when you have corporations teaming up? You have all this talk going on about the Sherman Antitrust Act these days, right? What we're talking about, if you ask me, is consolidation of power. This is, again, the Technocrats, what I mean by them teaming up, coming together. We have to understand that with the political theater that's going on, everybody has their own show these days. This is TV reality, starring Donald Trump. I mean, the show that was put on for, was it Senate that Mark Zuckerberg was drug across, where he sat in that chair? Everything that's going on, even with Jack Dorsey, everything that's going on, it really is political theater. That's not politics. What we're talking about here is politics. That's why, should I even read this article right here? Forget Russia. Social media giants banning alternative voices will directly influence the elections. That's how they're engineering the vote. Election fraud. They're cutting out dissenting opinions, subversive statements, opinions, thoughts that they don't agree with. Of course, that would genuinely, alter people's thought process. They're saying they're trying to cut back on foreign misinformation. It's crazy. We had this tree called the internet, and we had one bad branch, so everybody thinks we need to burn it down. We can't communicate with people across the sea. We can't communicate with people across the world and talk about certain things, all because of a one bad branch, one bad batch. Or maybe that was the point, was to spread the idea of freedom so that they could come through. And once we're all used to this, once we're all domesticated, essentially, for them to come through and take it away, swipe it away. Only let us reach so far before they take it away. There's a lot of power that comes with the internet. There's a lot of power that comes with knowing things and truth, knowledge, and so much more. And if they can stop this, if they can stop the growth of this tree, well, they would have wood for all winter, wouldn't they? They'd be able to survive and thrive while we die. And what I mean by this is there's the Five Eyes governments are seeking control of Silicon Valley companies with backdoor security. Now, I'm going to get into this because essentially what we're talking about in my thought process is the slow introduction of government-controlled or government-regulated social media. This is something that we've talked about slowly leading up to this time frame in various forms, but I truly believe that they are going to make these public utilities. Now, you can go back and do the research as to how something like Facebook even came up. You may come into contact with something like DARPA's LifeLog. You can see where people like Tom of Facebook got his of MySpace got his funding. The idea of social media is more than just that. It really was an initiative to try to capture the world. And I think that's a lot of things that people don't want to think about. And what it definitely did just that. That's why it's part of the web, the World Wide Web. It's got us. And that's why I'm telling you guys, what are we taking into this new world order? People try to think they're slick. I get it. That's probably why everybody got triggered over here on Colin Kaepernick. You can't have a revolution paid for by Nike. You can't have a revolution broadcasted by CNN. You see, so whenever you have these facilities and these utilities that are going to be using all these type of platforms and venues, you have to wonder and ask yourself, what are we putting into it? This is why we're hearing so much debate about creating our own platforms, getting off of platforms, getting off of it entirely. This is a real debate because we're essentially talking about how we want to move forward together as a society. Do we want to have censored and regulated speech, or do we want to have free speech out here in the real world? But let me get into this article right here. We put this up September 4th. It's from Activist Post by Aaron. It says the governments of Australia, United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, and New Zealand announced they intend to force encryption technology providers to provide lawful access to users' encrypted communications, IT News reported. At the 5-country ministerial meeting on the Gold Coast last week, security and immigration officials put forward a range of proposals to combat terrorism and crime, with an emphasis on the future of the internet and encryption technology, Silicon Valley. As part of the Five Eyes umbrella agreement, the countries share intelligence with one another, as revealed by Edward Snowden. As a reminder, Snowden exposed the Five Eyes countries that hacked into a planted spyware on at least 50,000 networks worldwide. This was done through the NSA team called Tailored Access Operations, TAO, and the malware was designed to compromise routers, switches, and firewalls to monitor entire networks. And before I go back into this article, this is how we're real quick. This is the revelations that we're hearing about Hillary Clinton. And this is important. This pertains to what we're going to be talking about in the next segment, with Hillary Clinton basically being like a Chinese-owned spy. Information is going to be vastly important and vastly invaluable in the future. It's going to be worth more than gold. Like, really think about that. And what Hillary Clinton did, that we're finding out, is that she basically sent copies of whatever email she was getting from the State Department to the Chinese. Like, so any kind of state, federal, government, any level kind of conversation she was having, the Chinese were getting inside access. So outside of her turning the White House into a revolving door of information and whoring herself out, selling herself out, we're hearing now that she's basically giving over the information to the Chinese. Now, when we're screaming about Russia, these are all distractions. We've talked about it too, her connections to Russia. And I'm sure other countries or other presidents have sold us out 2 degrees as well. The information that's coming out now regarding Hillary Clinton, though, this pertains to what's going on in our present day. We're worried about Russia when they're kicking out the Rothschilds, they're kicking out all these people from their country. They're trying to get it back. But we're over here literally in bed with so many different people. We're infiltrated. I've talked about that time and time again. We're going to get into these New Mexico extremists here shortly, and how, again, that's stuff that's happening in the real world that they're not allowing to be discussed into the digital world, because this allows people to think and change differently. They don't want these kinds of not necessarily dissenting opinions, but alternative viewpoints on this thing. They only want positive stuff. They don't want little doses of reality entering into their matrix. But let me get back into this article. It says, now we have the same countries seeking to, quote, encourage information and communications technology service providers to voluntarily establish lawful access solutions to their products and services. This will apply to all products and services operated in the Five Eyes countries, which could see legislation to push implementation of a backdoor in technologies. Should governments continue to encounter impediments to lawful access to information necessary to aid the protection of the citizens of our countries, we may pursue technological enforcement, legislative or other measures to achieve lawful access solutions, the Five Eyes joint statement on the encryption said. Basically what they're saying is this: the United Kingdoms, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the United States are all teaming up to make sure that they have the ability to get your information regardless of the situation. They want to be able to have your information regardless of the situation. Now, in that rant, I told you that we were going to be talking about the New Mexico extremists, technocrats engineering the vote, little doses of reality, right? Well, whenever we're talking about these New Mexico extremists, these jihadis, imagine how I feel, man. Like, I'm out here. I get that. Their trial was earlier this week, just this past Tuesday. And in that trial, you know, he's literally talking about, or they have statements of how their children were going to be used to raise an army. They were going to kill non-believers of Allah. And, you know, I'm sure a lot of this stuff, too, is for political theater, but then how much of it really truly is. They try to, you know, pass this stuff off as if it's a joke. I don't really think it's a joke. And this is something, again, that we're having to continue to discuss. It just keeps coming back up. More attacks. You know, and if you guys dig into that case even more so, and this is what applies to all this stuff, you see how they have weapons, they're being monitored, it's all being allowed. It's all being allowed to happen, but we can't discuss it or report on it digitally. You can't point it out. You know, he's literally getting off on like $200 bail, man. Like, come on. There's a lot of fishy, shady stuff happening with it. And so while we have all these people basically infiltrating the country, you know, you have the Chinese spies that are here. You have Americans who have sold out. You have people who are crossing the border. You have domestic terrorists that are being brewed. Like, this stuff is crazy. So, you know, ask yourself, is it right to send your kid to one of these public indoctrination centers with a bulletproof backpack? You got all this stuff going on. I'm not trying to spread fear, but I'm saying this is the time frame that we're living in. This is the chaos that we have to decipher. You see, let me see if I can play for you this clip of the New Mexico jihadis.
We have the visitation log starting the day they were arrested and several calls to and from the Taos County Detention Center.
Hey, Mom, how you doing?
It's a recorded conversation between Lucas Morton and his mom.
I'm doing fine. What's going on?
Not much. How you feeling?
I'm feeling fine. You're in jail. What do you mean nothing much?
He's facing child abuse charges, accused of living on a compound in Amalia, New Mexico with 11 kids who were filthy and starving.
Hey, calm down. It's all for the camera.
But his mother isn't laughing.
So why the kids were starving?
No, that's what I'm trying to say. What they're saying is not true. It's a tree in the forest of what's going on. You know, they're just trying to play on the public opinion. But no, that's not the case.
In the recorded conversations from the Taos County Detention Center, he warns her to watch what she says.
What was my part?
Yes.
Well, they're recording the phone call, so the legal attorney, he advises not to speak on the phone. They could use it against us. That's why I was trying to stay on the lighter side of things, you know.
He tells her he's seen his father. He was in court for one of his hearings.
So take care. Thanks for accepting the call. God will talk to you soon, all right?
A judge ruled Lucas Morton can be released from jail if he meets few guidelines. But attorneys say they're having trouble finding a place to stay in Taos County before he's released. In Taos for Target 7, I'm Shelley Leggett.
And so you literally have you have jihadis that are getting off and they're fine. It's all good, man. Don't even worry about it. It's all for show. Check this out. You know, we have the FBI saying that the Muslim teen from the New Mexico Islamic compound was trained for jihad. He was talking about raising an army and killing non-believers in the name of Allah. This was written by Pamela Geller from Sons of Liberty Media. We put this up September 3rd. It says it was a jihad training camp, raising an army for jihad slaughter. And their defense is freedom of religion, calling this prosecution Islamophobia. The media is scrubbing and censoring the story, but it is just as we have warned / predicted for years. It's in an affidavit filed in support of a criminal complaint. An FBI special agent wrote that Lavelle's 13-year-old son told investigators that his mother's boyfriend, Siraj, 40, wanted to get an army together and train them for jihad. The boy told agents that Ibn trained him and another of Lavelle's teenager sons in firearms and military techniques, including rapid reloads and hand-to-hand combat, and told them jihad meant killing non-believers on behalf of Allah, according to the affidavit filed in the U.S. District Court in New Mexico. Defense lawyers have said that the 5 adults were exercising their constitutional rights to practice their religion and own firearms, and that the group is being discriminated against because they are black and Muslim. The defense attorneys could not immediately be reached for comment on Saturday. And this is, a repost from the article over there on Routers. It says, Taos, New Mexico, a 13-year-old boy who was part of a group taken into custody at a squalid New Mexico compound last month has told FBI agents his mother's boyfriend was training him to conduct jihad against non-believers, according to federal court documents. This is written by Andrew Hay, Routers, September 2nd, 2018. So what am I talking about? Why are we talking about jihadis in a time frame of talking about the technocracy? Well, people are training, man. People are training. Jihadis are training. Patriots are training. Racists are training. Antifa is training. Are you training? Or are you just going to get one of your kids one of these bulletproof backpacks? You see, this is the time frame that we're really in. This is the time frame that we are in. The craziness. Yeah, I put up a article earlier. I put up a video of this guy getting tased to death. I'll put up the video for you, but I'll talk about how, there's a study that came out talking about how the militarization of police, how that hasn't done anything to stop violence. It's actually encouraged it. But let me play for you guys this clip. This man literally dies in the hospital. Not here, but you get you get more than 3 different officers hovering over this guy, tasing him repeatedly, to the point to where other officers have to tell some of the officers, hey, stop, come on, he's good, stop tasing him. But they don't get it. You shit. All right, we're gonna tase him. Yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and get up that article together for you guys while this decides to do whatever it does. What we're talking about. Just tase him. Just tase him. Tase him. Tase him. Tase him. Tase him. Get on the ground. Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back. Roll over. Roll over. Roll over. Roll over. It says there are always risks in challenging excessive police power, but the risks of not challenging it are more dangerous. Fatal. Hunter S. Thompson, Kingdom of Fear, Loathsome Secrets of a Star-Crossed Child in the Final Days of the American Century. A new study by a political scientist at Princeton University concludes that militarizing police and SWAT teams provides no detectable benefits in terms of officer safety or violent crime reduction. In fact, according to the researcher Jonathan all right, we're going to tase him. Because of his transfer. Let's tase him. Let's tase him. Tase him. Tase him. Tase him. Tase him. Get on the ground. And how it makes them less safe, less popular, and less. Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back. Roll over. Roll over. On the use and consequences of militarization reveals that police militarization neither reduces rates of violent crime nor changes the numbers of officers assaulted or killed. In other words, warrior cops aren't making us or themselves any safer. With that being said, we're going to take a quick break. because I'm tired of hearing this guy scream, and I'm tired of seeing this person get tortured, because that's essentially what it is. This is the policies of the technocracy, to where they have to disenfranchise you from your power. They have to put you in a state to where you know you are just a serf, to where you know you're just a slave. This is what I mean by neo-feudalism, a government of the rich, for the rich, by the rich. But don't go anywhere. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about all this crazy stuff that's going on with China. Whole lot of stuff going on. Like I said, overseas observations. But we'll be back with more on the other side. You know, it's not very rare that it's very rare that we actually get into political episodes. I try to stay away from politics. I really do. It brings out the worst in people. I'd rather look at the sociological and environmental and psychological aspects and things that we can actually fix. Some of this stuff, you know, the institutionalized racism, the systemic racism, even the systemic sexual abuse, this stuff is crazy. But thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in to this edition, this very ambiguous, rather rough edition of Factions of Freedom. Now, before I go into what's going on with China, I think it's imperative that we talk about the 200-year-old museum that burned, because this is a literal modern example of modern-day book burning. Not only do we have to worry about censorship, information being taken off, deleted, removed, stored, politicized, criminalized, we literally have to worry about the libraries of information that we're surrounded by. What happens whenever information becomes criminalized? What happens whenever they start saying, hey, you can't have that book. Hey, you can't have that file. Hey, you can't listen to that radio host. More than 20 million items are believed to have been destroyed. That includes a 12,000-year-old human skull. Firefighters attacking the blaze started on Sunday evening.
Sim, foi uma perda para o Brasil, porque aqui tinha a nossa história científica, a nossa história acadêmica, o legado da época imperial. Então, foi uma perda irreparável, eu diria isso.
The museum celebrated its 200th anniversary this year. It was once the Portuguese royal family's residence. There had been warnings that the museum was in cases unknown as to how it got started. Why are we talking about modern day book burning? Well, in the technocracy, they believe, or they want, a constant evolving history, a constant evolving future too, a constant present, to where, you know, they can delete facts, they can delete the history just so they can manipulate the future. What happens whenever these institutions that we should be holding in such high regard, that do hold our histories, collectively and individually, whenever they're taken from us, whenever they are literally destroyed? I've talked about this before, and that mini-cast that we went over with reincarnation and things like this, with the destruction of the Library of Alexandria. We are a race with amnesia. We do not know who we are. And if we are not allowed to share individual thoughts, or at least have points of reference to go through or go to, we will literally become, again, lost. I don't think people understand what this means. The idea should be a free and open place to discuss this marketplace of ideas. But if they literally begin to start censoring the modern day public forum, the modern day public square, then they begin to start censoring us. They begin to change things. And it starts with the information that we have access to. I'm not telling everybody to, you know, go out there and go check out a book. But I'm trying to say, think about what you're doing. Think about what we're creating, what we're leaving behind for the coming generations. Check this out. China's new AI says that rumor mongers will be headed straight to prison. Straight to prison. So not only are they calling for censorship of religion, you better not believe in anything other than the state, but if you start spreading rumors, we're going to send you to prison. This was put up by Technocracy News August 30th by Stella Quay and Ryan Wu. It says, spreading online rumors that violate Beijing's official truth can get you 7 years in jail, and everybody is turned into a rat to tattle on their friends. China asserts that rumors violate individual rights. Rumors create social panic. Rumors cause fluctuations in the stock market. Rumors impact normal business operations. Rumors blatantly attack revolutionary martyrs. China has launched a platform which includes a mobile app that lets the public report, quote, online rumors, and even uses artificial intelligence to identify reports that are false, as Beijing cracks down on what it views as socially destabilizing content. The platform, launched on Wednesday, comes as Beijing steps up its efforts to police the internet, especially social media used by people to discuss politics and other sensitive subjects despite stringent censorship. Besides a website, the platform Piao, and that's spelled Piayao, Piao, which means refuting rumors, also has a mobile app and social media accounts with social media giants Weibo and WeChat. Via those channels, Piao will broadcast real news, sourcing reports from state-owned media, party-controlled local newspapers, and various government agencies. Rumors violate individual rights. Rumors create social panic. Rumors cause fluctuations in the stock markets. Rumors impact normal business operations. Rumors blatantly attack revolutionary martyrs, Piao said in a promotional video of the launch on its website. Official data shows internet regulators received 6.7 million reports of illegal and false information in July, with most of the cases coming from Sina, that owns Weibo, Tencent, which owns WeChat, Baidu, and Alibaba. Chinese laws dictate that rumor mongers could be charged with defamation, and they face up to 7 years in prison. Online posts that contain rumors visited by 5,000 people or 5,000 internet users or are reposted more than 500 times could also incur jail sentences. Hosted by the Chinese cyberspace Affairs Commission, in affiliation with the official Xinhua news agency, Piyao has integrated over 40 local rumor-refuting platforms and uses artificial intelligence to identify rumors. So that's right. You can't even face your accusers. If you start talking, you start saying some things, better watch out. But better hope it doesn't go on Piyao. That's crazy to me. I have no idea what is going on in China. But then again, this is the communist country. This is I really don't think people understand the threat that's going on with China. It's way, way bigger than Russia. And we're starting to emulate them, which is even more crazy. You know, and if you guys want to hear something else that's crazy, you know, again, revolving around social media use, revolving the Chinese takeover of America, revolving around us selling ourselves out, China is using LinkedIn for mass spy recruitment of Americans with security clearances. Now think about that, okay? And for people that don't know what LinkedIn is basically like a social media. It's like a Facebook for people who are looking for jobs, or Facebook for professional people who have all kinds of different services and stuff like that. China is using it to recruit spies so that they can get more information on us. That is crazy. That is crazy to me. And I don't think people like really get that. Like, oh my God, that is wild. And the reason I'm freaking out, you know, we're talking about a lot of different things here: jailing rumor mongers, burning books, all this other crazy stuff. Let me just get into this article. It's by Tyler Durden from Zero Hedge. Put this up August 31st. It says, after social media giants Facebook and Twitter have led efforts to purge what they deem to be Russian and Iranian foreign intelligence accounts, a bombshell new report says China is using LinkedIn to attempt mass recruiting of Americans with access to government and commercial secrets. In an interview with Reuters, a top U.S. counterintelligence chief has claimed China is being super aggressive in its online recruitment efforts on the Microsoft-owned job networking and locator tool, that a high-ranking intelligence member would take a step of calling out of a particular company by name, urging it to curtail Chinese influence, is rare, even in the current environment, hyper-anxiety, and fears over Russian election hacking. The counterintelligence official, William Avania, described to Reuters that the U.S. agencies have confirmed that the Chinese are casting a broad dragnet on LinkedIn while seeking to lure Americans in personal interviews. He said that Chinese campaigns include contacting thousands of LinkedIn members at a time, but he declined to say how many fake U.S. intelligence accounts had been discovered and how many Americans may have contacted and how much success China has had in its recruitment drive. Avania, who heads the U.S. National Security or the U.S. National Counterintelligence and Security Center, has further called on LinkedIn to follow the lead of other online companies. Quote, I recently saw that Twitter is canceling, I don't know, millions of fake accounts, and our request would be maybe LinkedIn could go ahead and be a part of that, according to Reuters. LinkedIn has something approaching 600 million users on its site around its globe, including 150 million members in the U.S. Meanwhile, LinkedIn has responded to allegations of the U.S. intelligence by noting it is increasingly aware of such threats and says it is cooperating with authorities. So, wow, holy crap, that's crazy to me. That is crazy to me. That people could literally just be like, hey, you want to do you want to be a spy? Do you want to be, you want to sell us some info? How about you come work for us? You know, you double agent. That's crazy to me. That is crazy. And it's going on. So while everybody's over here screaming Russia, 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 I think Hollywood just came out with that movie Crazy Rich Asians, and that's them flexing. We got a lot of stuff going on in this here country, and I don't see where we're gonna go. Everybody's acting like, we have a whole different planet to go to. Where else are we gonna go? Not a lot of people are gonna accept Americans. The idea is to collapse communism and introduce the idea is to collapse capitalism and introduce communism and socialism. Really. This is why they're releasing the technology to manage us. This is why Jeff Bezos, this week alone, he just keeps being like the richest man or the most expensive person. Me and Kerry Wedler of the Anti-Media talked about that too, how the Washington Post has ties to Amazon, or how the Washington Post has ties to Amazon and the CIA. We're talking about the consolidation of power here. All these different corporations and businesses and whatever, they're slowly lining up. Okay, this is the technocracy. These are these people who are just above us, but aren't the elite, that do the bidding of the elite to cast down the social engineering that we are going through. Crazy. And you have warring factions happening, warring factions with other people, with other organizations, with other countries, other secret societies that don't want to work with certain secret societies. It is getting crazy. And there's for me, I don't really think there's a lot of ways for me to try to keep track of it, but I can try to do the best that I can. At the moment, I can see what's going on with China being one of the primary adversaries against America. And what I mean by this is China recently offered $60 billion to Africa with, quote, and I say this with inverted commas, no strings attached. $60 billion with no strings attached. Now, we've spoken on this before. I've spoken on China investing properly in Africa. You know, you got most of Western society goes up in there for the diamonds and for the jewels. We're aware of that. China's going in there. It's investing in the roads. It's investing in the education. It's investing in infrastructure. Now, does this mean, because Venezuela is getting propped up by Chinese and Russian money too? Does this mean that in the future we have to worry about Africa? You know, right now what's going on is a reverse apartheid, where basically they're taking back the land from the Afrikaners, the Boers. There's a lot of stuff happening geopolitically, but you know, when you have China and Africa teaming up, especially underneath this kind of notion, I think that kind of sends shockwaves to the entire global community, asking the question of what can really come from that. But remember that in the multipolar world order, the globalists always win. Let me get into this article. It's from The Anti-Media by Emma Fiala. She put this up September 5th. It says Chinese President Xi Jinping has offered a $60 billion aid package to African countries over the next 3 years in response to the country's increasing debt distress. They say with no strings attached. China's investment plans includes a $5 billion in African exports, $10 billion for development, and $15 billion in grants and interest-free loans. And a $20 billion credit line will also be included, as well as a emergency food aid, scholarships and vocational training, and increased agricultural development. China will extend $60 billion of financing to Africa in the form of government assistance, as well as investment and financing by financial institutions and companies. China's president said during the Forum on China-African Cooperation, FOCAC, a triennial meeting between Chinese leaders and leaders from across Africa. Leaders of 53 African nations were present during the two-day summit in Beijing. The $60 billion aid package is the same amount Beijing previously pledged at the last FOCAC meeting, or the last FOCAC summit in South Africa in 2015, with aid pledged during the FOCAC summits in the past has a history of increasing from year to year. Such pledges have remained consistently more recently. Jeremy Stevens, international economist for the Standard Bank Group, said it would not be, quote, politically appropriate to offer larger loans at a time that the continent is already overloaded with debt. Stevens contended that the lack of increase is not a step back in relations, but rather it's a maturation and a natural evolution of the relationship since 2000. Africa has borrowed around $130 billion from China. Woo! And the International Monetary Fund warned this year that thanks to 40% of Africa's low-income countries being at risk or in debt distress, the continent is facing a debt crisis. though researchers at the China African Research Initiative at Johns Hopkins University have concluded that Chinese loans are not a major contributor to the debt distress in most African nations. Now, we've talked about this before, the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. This is what I see really kind of, I guess, combating the dollar, which brings me to my thought. Trump kind of saying, you hear people saying, crash the economy, crash the economy, crash the economy. I don't think people really get what that means. Our dollar, we're trying to get it strong again. Our country, we're trying to do something. We're trying to dust off cobwebs. China has an enormous money reserve. They have gold. They are teaming up with other countries to produce other types of currencies. The Chinese threat is real, and I don't want to. I'm not trying to sit here and scare people, but I really think people need to understand what's going on with that. The trade war, the hyperinflation that we see taking place in Venezuela, that could easily, slowly start coming to America. And while we're here talking about China, realize that these are the people that do slave labor for Nike. I'm going to try to trigger some Americans right quick. Let me see if I can get up that clip of Colin Kaepernick, his newest commercial. While people are over here worried about this, they're not really pointing out the fact that, yeah, people in places like China who will literally have children working for like 25 cents, if that, they have these sweatshops, they have these factories where children work for slave labor. So while we're over here trying to burn Nikes to try to send out some kind of signal, we don't understand the threat we are facing. This deal was cultivated months in advance, and they knew that this was going to happen. They knew that they were going to be able to trigger people. They'd have a brief dip in sales, and then they would have a huge spike. You are now what they call belief-driven buyers. How does this tie into China? They are aware of our economy. They're aware of how emotionally volatile we are. Look at your shirt. Look at your pants. Look at your shoes. Do you have anything that is made American? This is why we have this whole demoralization process going through where everybody hates America. Oh, I get it. This is what I'm talking about with the deconstructivists. We're moving towards this global order, this new world order, right? What are we taking towards it? They're trying to destroy everything that we hold of value, infiltrate us, and then supplant us. Substitute our beliefs and our values, the things that we hold dear. This is why that's what I'm saying. It's the sophisticated mind control that's going on so many different levels. Overseas observations, we're becoming North Korea or China over here. If I don't agree with Donald Trump, I'm a communist. And if I agree with Donald Trump, I'm a racist. Is this North Korea? Are we supposed to be obeying Big Brother at all times? They're literally trying to squash dissent. They don't want people to think for themselves. You see, they got us over here literally burning our clothes, burning our environment, trying to burn it all down, and we have no idea what we're going to replace it with. We have no idea what we're going to replace it with. Oh, but don't worry. There's my boy Colin Kaepernick. And we're still not talking about police brutality or police accountability.
For the national team at age 16. Don't become the best basketball player on the planet.
These guys just got free advertising from me too. That's crazy. They just got free advertising.
In basketball. Believe in something. Even if it means sacrificing everything.
And I'm with you, Cap.
When they talk about the greatest team in the history of the sport, make sure it's your team. If you have only one hand, don't just watch football. Play at the highest level. And if you're a girl from Compton, don't just become a tennis player. Become the greatest athlete ever. energy. Don't let it stop you from playing soccer.
My dreams are pretty crazy. Pretty crazy that I have to take melatonin and some of this CBD oil to help, sometimes be normal. But yeah, Nike just got free advertising for placing that. So realize that we are underneath sophisticated mind control, sophisticated brainwashing, sophisticated social engineering. They knew that was going to trigger you. They knew that you would get upset, and they knew that you wouldn't do anything other than what they wanted you to do. So understand when we're being pushed in one direction and we're being pushed in another direction, a lot of these things are meant to work in tandem. You see, so while we're over here upset about somebody within our country trying to do something for us, or trying to do something generally, you got China over here making moves, you got Russia over here making moves, you got Venezuela unfortunately collapsing. You see, you have all kinds of different stuff going on, but we don't care, and we're not pointing these types of things out to see how it all works, to see what's happening on the global scale. Speaking of which, as we're still over here in the section talking about overseas observations, apparently Vanilla Ice was in this Emirates plane that was quarantined at the JFK after 100 people reported feeling sick. And this is reported on September 5th by End Times Headlines. It says that at least 19 people have been confirmed sick after a plane landed at JFK airport Wednesday morning, with dozens of the packed international flight reporting feeling ill. Emirates Flight 203 from Dubai was quarantined on the runway for hours after many of the 521 passengers and some of the crew reported feeling ill on board of the flight. The cause of the outbreak has not been confirmed, but the CDC said the passengers were reported coughing and a fever. Some passengers were also reported to be vomiting. Now, this is important. And the reason I want to talk about this in the section of overseas observations, this wasn't the only time that this happened. I've been talking about it all for the past few weeks now. Unfortunately, I don't have an update for you. People getting sick eating McDonald's salads, and the numbers spreading. If 19 people have been confirmed sick and over 100 report feeling sick, what happens if there's like a delayed reaction or some kind of delayed effect? What I'm essentially trying to get into here is talking about bio-warfare, chemical warfare. Who knows what these people were exposed to? Who knows what's in their system? Who knows what's in what's in the ventilation? Who knows? You see, there's not a whole lot of quarantine procedures that go down whenever you go through, or quarantine and decontamination procedures that go through when you go through on a flight. But what's even crazier is that very same day, over 147 people evacuated from a plane due to a cholera fear to a plane that just happened or just arrived from Oran, Algeria. So a plane that was in France, a plane that arrived in France from Algeria, 147 people were evacuated from it. So this is in the same day that you have two kinds of experiences that are very, very strange happening within like minutes of each other. Within minutes of each other. And that's what I kind of find strange. And this leads me to my point. What we have to start thinking about these days, because of the quality of health, the quality of life, how people are treating themselves, what we have to think about these days are how we're being affected, how the environment's affecting us. We think everything's perfectly awesome. Nobody wants to take into consideration their health, but they're not really thinking. I have this article here for you guys. I'm going to close it out with this. Y Combinator's Sam Altman, biological warfare is the biggest threat. You have somebody from Silicon Valley talking about how this is a big deal. And again, this comes out days after these two planes literally have a strange evacuation take place due to some kind of medical mishap. Sam Altman, president of Y Combinator, Silicon Valley's largest startup accelerator, believes biological warfare is the greatest threat to humanity, and people, quote, aren't as scared enough about that as they should be. 2 years ago, Altman said he would escape to New Zealand with billionaire Peter Thiel in an event of an epidemic. Altman recently told Bloomberg that he was just joking back then, but the 33-year-old has recently put thought into emergency planning. Altman's go bag includes a gun, water, a tent, batteries, antibiotics, blankets, and a gas mask. Quote, "The world is so interconnected now that if anything was to happen, we would all be in pretty bad shape, unfortunately," Altman told Bloomberg. "I don't think you can just run away and try to hide in a corner of the earth. New Zealand has become a popular destination for many tech millionaires worried about an upcoming apocalypse." According to Bloomberg, 7 Silicon Valley entrepreneurs have bought bunkers and placed them in New Zealand over the past year. Last year, LinkedIn co-founder Reid Hoffman told The New Yorker he believes more than half of Silicon Valley billionaires have purchased some form of apocalypse insurance, like an underground bunker. In addition to Altman, Melinda Gates has previously said that biological terrorism is most definitely the biggest global threat she can imagine within the next decade. Quote, a bioterrorist event could spread so quickly, and we are so unprepared for it, Gates told Vox founder Ezra Klein in a March interview. Bill Gates shares his wife's concerns, and the two have written extensively about the threat of infectious disease, both natural and human-made. In a 2017 op-ed for Business Insider, Bill Gates wrote that an airborne pathogen has the potential to kill more than 30 million people within 1 year. Such an outbreak, he wrote, could occur within the next 10 to 15 years. Several experts echoed these concerns. George Postle, an ex officio member of the Blue Ribbon Study Panel on Biodefense, previously told Business Insider that a pandemic strain as bad as the 1918 influenza will eventually emerge one day. Post, however, said that a devastating bioterrorism attack is less likely than a natural pandemic due to the complexity of executing biological warfare. Either way, Bill and Melinda Gates maintain that the world is not prepared enough for a pandemic. Melinda Gates has advocated for the creation of a group like the CDC that would solely focus on bioterrorism, monitoring the world for outbreaks, and creating appropriate safety standards. Now, for people who are unaware, I have a villainous hatred towards Bill Gates. But in this particular situation, I would have to agree. We aren't prepared for these types of things. And how would they necessarily go about releasing said bioweapon? Through planes, through airports, through these locations that maybe these New Mexico jihadis are playing at. You have to understand the time frame that we're in. You have got to be on point. This ain't your mama's radio, and this sure as stuff ain't your daddy's radio. The days that we're moving forward into, they're getting real crazy, and that's why we have got to remain vigilant. However, that's all I really have for you guys and gals. I would like to say thank you for tuning in to this edition of Factions of Freedom. This is Assaulting Cognition, Policies of the Technocracy, and Overseas Observations. Yeah, that's right. Maybe Hillary Clinton was a Chinese-owned spy. You know, in the episode with Carrie Weather, we talked about the NDAA, basically the Smith-Mundt Act, the idea of legally being able to propagandize the American citizens. We put out a lot of good content for you people, and I hope you guys understand the amount of work that is required to do this. You know, this is the wonder of danger. These are the time frames that we are in. However, that's all I really have for you girls and guys. I switched it up that time. And remember, team, stay vigilant, expose lies and share truth. This is Noise Era, Freedom Faction, out.